You know, it's one thing to have an anime that's bad on different types of levels, whether it would be a bad story, bad characters, bad presentation, bad execution, take your pick. But it's an entirely different matter when the show you're watching shamelessly throws any potential it had out the window for the sake of taking the easy way out. That's what IS Infinite Stratos does, and does so without giving a damn. Adapted from the light novel by Izuru Yumizuru of the same name, IS Infinite Stratos was directed by Yasuhito Kikuchi and written by Atsuhiro Tomika, and was released during the winter 2011 anime lineup, the same lineup that gave us Madoka Magica. Its setup had potential to make a pretty interesting story, but it's ultimately dragged down by a dull, harem romantic comedy plot with stagnant direction, a moronic main character, generic quote-unquote love interests, who are just there to fill the harem anime quota. All of this creates a show that's disliked by me not because of its genre, but because it doesn't seem to try to be more than it is. Infinite Stratos is set in a futuristic world where women dominate over men thanks to the emergence of a highly advanced exoskeleton technology known as IS, which only they could use and are utilized mainly for combat sport. That is until our main character, Ichika Orimura, unexpectedly manages to activate one of these advanced machines, making him the first male in the world to ever do so. He is quickly sent to IS Academy, a school for future IS pilots where he will spend the next 3 years studying, training, and fighting in order to become a skilled pilot. And since women were the only ones who could pilot ISs, it's also a school filled entirely of young women. It's here that we get introduced to the main female cast. First we have Hoki Shononono, Ichika's childhood friend whom he hasn't seen in years, and practices kendo, which she uses as a link between their friendship. Then there's Cecilia Alcott, an aristocratic girl from England who likes them biscuits and tea, who challenges Ichika to an IS duel for the class rep position after he pisses her off. Then you have Huang Lingyan, Ichika's other childhood friend who made him an important promise in the past, and quickly develops a rivalry with Hoki. Then there's Charles, aka Charlotte Dunois, a French guy slash chick who introduces himself slash herself to the story as another male IS pilot. And lastly, you have Laura Boldewig, a genetically engineered German super soldier who has some beef with Ichika over something that happened in the past. Then you have other characters like Chifuyu Orimura, Ichika's older sister, who's a retired IS pilot who now works as a teacher and is idolized by him and Laura. Maya Yamada, Ichika's green-haired substitute teacher who has a nice rack. And lastly, you have Tabane Shononono, the creator of IS technology and is Hoki's big sister. Ichika will go on to act like a jackass, make his friends angry, only for them to turn around and forgive him, make enemies, only for them to fall in love with him, be spied on, encounter mysterious threats, see a girl come out of the shower, pull some panties, have his life threatened, take a bath with a fully naked French chick, and all of that amazing stuff. What could have been a plot that used gender power struggle as a big what-if topic, instead goes for a harem romantic comedy route. This would be fine if it was dramatic, engaging, romantic, and funny. The problem is that it's none of that, and what you get instead is a mess of overused tropes, cliches, and forced affections, and uses its setup as one big excuse to surround Ichika with pretty teenage girls. And sure, gender superiority is briefly brought up, only to be quickly tossed out the window because it would get in the way of what it wants to be, that trying to do anything else is nothing more than a hindrance. Sure, there are a few moments that break up the usual harem stuff, but they don't actually forward the plot, and in some cases are never explained or are quickly forgotten as if they never happened. That, and thanks to everything else, they can feel forced and out of place, so when a serious event does happen, it never displays any real sincerity and makes it difficult to take seriously. Hell, the plot even involves mysterious AI-controlled IS units, hinting at some sort of dark, secret conspiracy that'll threaten the lives of everybody. But who cares about that, man, okay? More boobs! It never really deviates any further than what the plot sets up, and the direction lacks a resolve or conclusion. You get introduced to Ichika, meet Hoki and Cecilia, have a fight go on for class rep position, the other girls show up, and they all fight for him, occasionally battle mysterious IS units, and that's all you need to know, with anything else not being story-changing or important in the least. As if it's so focused on having these girls fall for this one guy, and having all these fights to the point where it forgets to set up any real story progression about halfway in, not caring about anything else. The humor can be summed up simply like this. Boy enters room, boy sees girl getting out of shower, boy freaks out, girl proceeds to beat the shit out of boy, hilarity ensues. Gee, wasn't that funny? And while there are moments that make you chuckle at times, the comedy in Infinite Stratos will mostly include misunderstandings and breasts. As for the ISs themselves, they do play a part in the plot and are used for the show's fight scenes, which do look pretty cool at times. Unfortunately, they are ultimately overshadowed by the show's romantic comedy elements, plus the fight fights that do happen don't always make sense. Sure, having a sparring match or a tournament is reasonable, but when you fight over who's going to be class rep, or just because Ichika didn't understand a promise you made with him, it just enters the what the fuck were they thinking level of ridiculous and ruins any immersion you might have had.
どんな意味があるってんだ。
来週のクラス対抗戦、そこで勝った方が負けた方に何でも一つ言うことを聞かせられる。説明ってそんなことできるわけないでしょうが。
But another problem about some of the fights is that they can feel boring. It also doesn't help that the ISs feel like one big Deus Ex Machina, sporting energy shielding and special abilities so convenient that any tension you might have had is drained away. I haven't covered the characters yet, huh? The characters can be super stock, with a main female cast that ultimately feel programmed to have Ichika at the center of their affections in the grand scheme of things, while the supporting cast can feel like they're just there, not always being involved in much. Ichika is the typical clueless male that pops up in shows of this nature. Not only is he clumsy, oblivious, forgetful, and inconsiderate, but all those traits are cranked up to 11. He also has a bit of a hero complex that's supposed to be a reason why the ladies get wet over him, but it ends up feeling tacked on considering that Ichika never changes. The character we get introduced to at the beginning is the same character at the end. When he tries to do something noble, you're supposed to feel uplifted, and when something bad happens to him, you're supposed to feel worried. But it doesn't pull through, since not only is he unlikable to begin with, but the show constantly reminds itself that it's a fan service harem anime, which can lead to moments like this. So why? Why do the main female cast want him that badly? This is when you realize that the girls at IS Academy are mindlessly attracted to Ichika just because he's a guy, while the quote-unquote love interests are bland, submissive, and don't develop past wanting to get laid by him. There's no chemistry, psychology, or mutual intimacy to be found. It's just one forced, conflictual battle royale for one boy's heart, with one submissive girl fighting another submissive girl for romance that will probably end up being as complex as a piece of paper, considering who they're fighting for. They seem like they're just programmed to like this guy, lacking personalities that would make them seem like actual human beings. Hoki's the tsundere, Huang's the girl who's just there, Cecilia is the stuck-up aristocratic stereotype, Laura is the super tough but clueless chick, and then you get the Charlotte who seemed like she would be the character of choice. She's nice, beautiful, and created the only subplot that I actually gave a damn for. Until the show decides to ditch all of that, getting rid of anything that made her character interesting to begin with, leaving her shyness towards Ichika as her only real trait. Chifuyu is tough, experienced, smart, and has a no-nonsense attitude, and will hit you on the head if you cause bullshit. Maya is a teacher, has green hair, wears glasses, and has boobs! Oh my god! I like her already! And Tabane enters the story at some point, has a childish personality, and wears bunny ears? Wow! And guess what? She also abandoned Hoki when she was younger, giving her a lonely and complicated life. Oh man, sounds like a great sister to me. And that really is all you need to know about the plot and characters. Yep, the plot of Infinite Stratos is the worst aspect, taking opportunities to stand out and ignores them. Just when we get to learn about a different side to the characters, just when we have something that could transform the show into something more, it will crush any chance at doing any of that. The characters are a generic lot, full of shit you've probably seen before in other shows, being who they are just because they are written like that, and any potential to turn things around are tossed away by the show's direction, leaving the characters feeling robotic, which is ironic considering what the show involves. It never takes detours, it never takes risks, it sticks to what it knows and never goes far as a result. What makes it worse is that it's not about what it should have been, but rather what it could have been. Just when you think about what the story could have been, the show kicks you square in the balls with the story it does give you acting as one big fuck you. The story doesn't go anywhere, do anything, or even try. You will ask questions, you won't get answers. If you expect something, you will be disappointed. Overall, the plot self-consciously tries to avoid any further depth when it can, and not only ends up feeling stagnant, but tired and lazy. Now with lackluster plot and characters, you would need a lackluster presentation to seal the deal. This is not the case. Actually, the presentation is a big positive when in comparison to everything else, but at the same time will leave you questioning current anime as a whole. I mean, look at this. The fight scenes can look nice with some fitting CG, albeit choppy CG, and the show's futuristic sci-fi aesthetic is fueled by the nicely detailed environments, sporting vivid color, and lighting that can really stand out at times. However, on the flip side, the designs can be a bit stock. If you have seen your share of Gundam or Code Geass, the mecha style this show employs for the ISs will look familiar, except for the fact that they only cover the pilot's arms and legs, revealing the head and torso, plus since IS Academy is comprised mostly of females, they decided to have them all wear skin-tight leotards as a way to show off their features, if you know what I mean, and to make cheap gags. The characters are also nothing to write home about. Most of the time, they wear their school uniforms, which don't really stray too far from Futuristic Academy Uniform 101, and when they don't wear them, it's either a t-shirt, a sweatsuit, Japanese robes, or nothing at all. But even so, Infinite Stratos is a fairly good-looking anime overall. Then you get to the audio presentation, and this is when I go, what? Holy shit, the soundtrack for the show is some damn good stuff, with plenty of variety. And although you won't realize this when there's dialogue and action, when listening to the tracks themselves, you will be stunned as to how such a soundtrack could ever end up in a show this stale. The tracks can range from energetic and bold, calm and relaxing, tranquil and entrancing, upbeat and lively, slow and somber, and just downright epic. Oh my god, when I heard these tracks, I was floored. Not just because a score like this can make you feel like a badass, but that a score that can make you feel like a badass ended up in a show that isn't badass in the least. Now, the acting isn't fantastic per se, but I guess the actors were trying to make the most out of the roles they're given, even if the characters they're voicing aren't very good. Now, I'm not confident in my ability to judge Japanese voice acting since I don't speak the language myself, but I can't say that it isn't terrible. I guess. Maybe. But yeah, the presentation is the best part about Infinite Stratos, with above average visual and sound design. And while some designs leave you open for something more, it doesn't detract from what is an otherwise good looking and sounding anime. Unfortunately, this doesn't do much to alleviate any of the faults, and just means that the show does a good job at presenting how bad it can be. I mean, the show doesn't have the production value of a Madoka Magica or a Fate Zero, but still, effort was put into this. Imagine the man hours needed to craft each scene, to compose each track, only to end up in a shallow mess. Why is being subpar suddenly justified if the presentation is good? It's too good for an anime like this, being all the more flabbergasting considering that even a show like this can have such things. You know, it's a bad thing to have a show with very little chances of being good, being doomed from the very start. But Infinite Stratos wasn't that kind of show. It's a show that had plenty of possibilities to be something different, and while that doesn't mean it would have been great, at least it would have been refreshing in some way. It did not do this, taking the easy route by using its premise as a cheap ploy to create a been there done that harem that just so happens to have robots in it, sporting an above average presentation that ends up feeling wasted. Almost all the characters can range from being bland to unlikable, actual romance is non-existent, the comedy is cheap and lackluster, the fights are unexciting, and anything interesting has potential sucked out of it, with potential being the key word here. It's the type of show I despise the most. It's a show that takes anything it could have used to be intriguing and throws them away like garbage for the sake of having a half-cooked plot, shameless TNA, and wasted opportunities, leaving only the potential of insulting your intelligence. I swear, if the light novels are anything like this show, then I guess it isn't surprising, and if it was adapted just for the sake of having merchandise, then there. It's a show. It exists. There must be some sort of merchandise to buy. Absolutely great. Congratulations, you are winner. But still, this isn't the worst anime I've seen, as there is a show that's just a bit worse. But even then, IS Infinite Stratos is a show that I can't stand and don't recommend. If you want to experience the best part of the show, find the soundtrack somewhere, but otherwise, I say don't check it out. You'll end up wasting your time doing so. I give IS Infinite Stratos a 1.5 out of 5.